Hello, and welcome to the Gameplay Cast review for James Bond Book Number 1, Casino Royale. Casino Royale, written by Ian Fleming, is the first entry into the now world-famous James Bond franchise. It was originally published in 1953 and covers Bond's famous mission to outfox the prolific gambler, Le Chiffre. Le Chiffre is a businessman with expensive tastes and Smersh's chief operative in France, but as his dissolute lifestyle threatens to ruin him, his only hope is to risk his paymaster's money at the card table. James Bond, the finest gambler in the service, has a deadly new mission to outplay Le Chiffre and shatter his Soviet cell. The book is true to the setting and as such is a lot different than the well-known film featuring Daniel Craig. This actually works in the book's favour, and while there are certainly a lot of scenes in common, there's enough differentiation and 50s character in the setting that it stands out. Having the benefit of Bond's internal monologue actually makes me much prefer the Bond from the book versus Bond from the big screen. So time for that all-important question. How do you take your martinis? I mean, is this book worth a read? I'm happy to report it definitely is. In many ways, the book is better than the films, and any Bond fan should take the time to read or listen to these books. The audiobooks on Audible have some really great voice actors too. To decide if you should add Casino Royale to your reading list or not, continue watching to hear my justification, as well as the final score out of 10. As always, fear not ye watchers, you will be kept in the dark, as major spoilers will be kept until the end of the video. This may be me talking as a complete novel review amateur, but I love the fastidiously detailed descriptions that Fleming uses to set the scenes up and flavour the interactions and environments. They really sell the luxuriousness of the food, the beauty of West Berlin. They are great and they really shine throughout the book. I think something else that stood out to me is that as we get Bond's emotions and monologues directly, we get a much more intimate understanding of the man and his motivations. This is great because it shows that the original character is far more than this womanizing gentleman spy we've seen on screen. He's not really even that much of a womanizer. Yes, he likes beautiful women and he's described as a handsome and attractive man, but it's not like he's in bed with a new woman every 5 minutes like we got in the Roger Moore films. Equally, this Bond is arguably much more about king and country and the mission. His loyalty above all else is to M and his job. At only 179 pages, it's a very short book, but I think this is down to some really concentrated writing and the raw nature of the story. It gets to the point with no messing about, and that really works in its favour. Could it have been a longer book with more content, more twists and turns? Possibly. It's not even a con to say it left me wanting more, so scratch this. It's not even really a proper complaint. You should always leave your audience wanting more. I think the only real issues for me are the 2 to 3 plot contrivances that certainly don't break the story, but you could question their likelihood. Most of them surround West Berlin, and though it might be obvious, I'll still keep the particulars of this for the spoilers section. All in all, these are pretty minor. I mean, we need to have a story, and these events do set up the rivalry/grudge Bond has with Smersh. So, I enjoyed it, and appreciate the character building they create, despite their arguably somewhat contrived nature. Honestly, it's a great book. Despite me complaining about wanting more, the actual desire for more is born out of how much I enjoyed the read. In actuality, the book is really concentrated down to a minimum page count. As such, the reader gets all killer and no filler. So, outside of the minor plot contrivances mentioned previously, it's an easy 9 out of 10 rating from me. Bond fans should definitely give this a read or a listen. The detailed and vivid account of Bond's mission, and the post-World War II world it takes place in, is brilliant. You also get to know the real man. The book humanises Bond, and this is not at all a bad thing. And if anything, I like James Bond even more. And as a result, going forward, I plan to read and review all of Fleming's Bond novels. So, on to les spoilers. Firstly, I mentioned a few issues around West Berlin. What I'm referring to here, in particular, is the fact that the Secret Service missed her being blackmailed by the Russians. Equally, at the very end where Smersh finds them, despite them being hidden on a private resort, while not implausible events, I do feel these are a bit weak. You could also argue about why Smersh would be so interested in such a low-level informant as to dispatch people to take her out. At best, they would be able to treat her as a hostile informant, making any intel she sent them untrustworthy. I don't know, I'm probably overthinking the events a bit. Also, Bond not being done in at the conclusion of the torture scene is also a bit silly, as we know with stuff like this, the Russians wouldn't leave any loose ends. This is something evidenced in later novels, and though there is a throwaway line in From Russia with Love, you've got to say it's not very plausible that the Russians would leave eyewitnesses. All said and done, I do stand my feelings that these are minor and the character development, insofar as setting up Bond's motivations, etc., is mostly worthwhile. I'd also like to add some depth to my argument that Bond isn't a womanizer. You just have to look at his relationship with Vesper. He falls in love with her and wants to marry her by the end of the book, only to have his dream of retiring with her taken away from him by Smersh. We then get real feelings from Bond, feelings of betrayal and mainly anger at the Russians for causing her death. This experience gives Bond his motivation to fight Smersh and also hardens his heart a touch. Not so much that each book doesn't have a beautiful female lead, but in a way that he's even more about the mission. Anyway, that is all you get. And as always, f*** Erebus.